class we'll be understanding what optionals to decide for UPSC examination. Now there have been numerous queries that have been coming up regarding we are an engineer and we want to take political science as an optional or public ad as an optional. So here we'll be understanding what kind of optional one should opt for and what kind of optional one should not opt for. Now UPSC, as we know, nearly 4 lakh candidates fill the form for UPSC, of which 50% appear in the prelims examination, 3% go through the prelims, that is appear for mains examination. Of that, around 0.25 to 0.3% clear mains, and finally if I talk about merit, it's 0.0025% of the people who finally clear through. So that is 1 out of every 10,000 candidates, I can roughly say, would clear this examination. So indeed it's a tough competition and it's very important to have a good strategy from the very beginning. Now the most important thing here is to stand away from the crowd. So never get diverted by what coaching institutes are propagating. Never get diverted by what your friends are opting for. It's very important that you decide optionals based on certain criteria. So we will be focusing on do's and don'ts for deciding an optional. So when I say do's, I focus only on 2 things. First is your interest and second is your background. So if you have a background with engineering and you had a good CGPA, then it's no point switching out an optional and moving to an optional from a subject of say arts or humanities, because since you have been studying that subject for last 4 years or 5 years, you have a sound knowledge on that subject and that ultimately pays. No subject you can say that I'll be able to prepare 100% in say coming 3 months or 4 months. Next is your interest. If the subject is scientific and you have a scientific aptitude, just go for that subject. If you have a kind of aptitude which is more oriented towards writing, go for humanities subject. So it's very important to check your interest and background and never ever go by these 2 things which most of the coaching institutes propagate. That is, this optional is scoring. Go for public administration because it's an scoring optional. Go for psychology because it's an scoring optional. Never ever do that. And next is popular. I have heard most of the people saying that geography is a popular optional, one should opt for geography. Success rate through geography is very high. It is never ever like that. So never go for go by the words of others where people say it's a scoring optional or it's a popular optional. Just focus on your individual interest and background, and that will make you stand aside from the crowd. The next most important thing is never switch. So if you try to focus on the lights here, you will get puzzled out if you continuously see it, because it's not stable, it's flickering. Similarly, if you are switching out, that means you are not focusing on exactly on what you want to achieve. When I say don't switch, I mean 2 things. First is don't switch from your background. So if you have a background with say MA in psychology, don't switch out to opt for geography. Or if you have a BE degree with electrical, never ever opt for public administration if you are good in that subject, obviously. If you are not good, that's a different story. The next is, there are numerous cases where students appear for mains for the first attempt. They say secure around 200 plus marks and they feel this subject was not scoring for me or I was not able to do good in this optional. As a result, in the next second attempt, they switch. So they move from say geography to Hindi literature or from literature to some other subject. So this is another kind of switching that I am talking about, from one optional to another optional. Never ever do that. Before starting your preparation, have a proper mental makeup, what optional to take and Once you have selected an optional, stick to it. Now when I say selecting an optional, you must go with few basic things. That is, what are the trends first of all. Now if I take a study of say 15,000 candidates appearing for UPSC, of that nearly 12,000 will either opt for history, geography, public ed or sociology, and remaining 3,000 would opt for the remaining subjects, sciences and literature subjects. So this is what the trend speaks. But don't go by the trend as I mentioned. What is important is to understand the concept of proportional representation. So let's say with Hindi literature, I would be talking about 4 optionals here: Hindi literature, electrical engineering, psychology and public administration. So what I am trying to do here is, I am trying to say number of candidates who appear with Hindi literature and all these 4 subjects. So let's say there are 10 candidates, 100 candidates, 2000 candidates and nearly 30,000 candidates. Okay. If this is the scenario, these are all assumptions, these are not real figures. So if I am talking about the number of candidates who are appearing with these electives in the mains examination, now the successful candidates, if I talk about, so when I say successful candidates, there would be proportional representation. If I say 10%, let's assume it's 10%, okay. So if I say 10% of the candidates are selected, so there would be 1 candidate from Hindi literature, 10 candidates from electrical engineering, 200 candidates from psychology and 3,000 candidates from public administration. What does that mean? It's never ever the game that there are selections done or selections only from certain subjects. It's only because number of candidates appearing in certain subjects are higher, people tend to set the idea that only this optional will fetch me good marks. Only if I appear with public administration or certain other subject, I will score good marks, because there are the statistics that show numerous candidates have secured good ranks through public administration. But this is not the case. What is clear here is every subject gets a proportional representation. So you have selections from every subject. Now there are numerous coaching institutes which try to propagate certain subjects like public administration, emphasizing that this is a scoring subject, this is a popular subject. Rather, if I talk about the scores, general trend speaks, geography will fetch you 400 plus marks in mains as compared to public administration with 340 to 350 as an average marks in public administration. Now this is again the case with the subject. So whether the subject is scientific or not, whether the subject you are opting is the subject of your interest or not, and finally can you have good writing styles in those subjects are some of the things that matter a lot. So the most important thing with this we can understand is every subject gets a proportional representation, and it's not just that one subject will fetch you higher marks. So never go by the sayings that this subject is scoring, this subject is popular, that's why I want to opt for this subject. Again, as I said, never get misguided. The most important misguides that people have is like say public administration. A common myth for public administration is this is a very good optional because there are numerous candidates who clear through public administration, but this is not the reality. The main thing to understand here is you have lots and lots of coaching institutes which are offering in public administration, which are offering in subjects like geography and history. So these 3 subjects have become the focus areas for most of the coaching institutes, and because of that these coaching institutes try to misguide the people, saying that you opt for it's better that you opt for these optionals, and if you opt for these optionals you will you are sure to succeed in the mains examination. Now again, if I talk about trends, since the paper pattern has changed from 2 optionals to 1 optional, there has been a significant reduction in the importance of the optional subject. So it's very important to focus now that the optional fetches very less marks as compared to GS. So GS has become a substantial area of focus. So any subject that you choose should be your subject of expertise, and you should not go by the blind sayings of the people around. Now, it's important to discover for an individual whether you have a need for the coaching institutes or it's a necessity. Now, most of the coaching institutes propagate examinations like UPSC in such a fashion that students tend to believe that it has become a necessity. Unless and until we do a coaching, it's impossible for us to succeed. So there have been numerous inspirational stories that have been put up on Examrace, which says how students have come up from their own, and it's just a need in the areas where you are weak. So it can guide you, mentor you only in the areas in which you are weak. Never ever try to cover the complete course with one coaching institute, because it's again divided into faculty and all the faculty won't be that productive for you. So try to focus on your weak areas. If you ever think to go for a coaching, just go for coachings in which you are weak, in the areas which you are weak. Now, what is the rule of the thumb? When I say rule of the thumb, there is few things that are very important. First, try to think outside the box. Don't think like what everyone is thinking. You are aiming to achieve a goal that is, as I said, 1 out of 10,000 tend to achieve. So when you are trying to do that, try to think outside the box. That's very important. So the first rule of thumb is, choose a subject that excites you. It does not put you to sleep. Try to match your subject with the contemporary issues. So if I say you are opting for sociology, now most of you will say sociology has become a very conventional subject. What kind of contemporary things can I relate to sociology? Now the kinds of social reforms that have been taking up in India would attach this subject to the contemporary issues. So it's very important while writing, you tend to focus on the contemporary ideas. Sorry. Next is, refer the previous year's paper before selecting the optional. So if you are confused, say between two optionals, geography and electrical engineering, okay, and you have a BE degree. So I have two candidates, one has a BE degree and another has a BE degree with a very good GPA, okay. So a person with a very good GPA, if he sees the electrical engineering paper, he will find it very, very easy. So it's better that he opts for electrical engineering. On the other hand, a person who does not have a good score on electrical engineering can opt for an alternative subject like geography or psychology or any other subject by referring to the previous year paper. Now some of the candidates say, or some of the coaching institutes tend to propagate, choose an optional where you get good references. Now with an era of internet, I don't think references is ever a problem. Whatever optional you are trying to pick up, you will find numerous references. So never ever go by the trend that choose an optional which has good references. There are numerous free lectures or open source lectures that are available on YouTube for nearly most of the subjects that you tend to opt for. So good references is important, but it is not a deciding criteria for choosing an optional. Now I can say there are 9 subjects, 9 optionals which are beneficial for GS. First is Pol Science. Now if you are opting for political science, you can directly solve the sections related to political science, constitution and international relations. History would help you in the areas of history. Geography would help you to cover the GS for geography and environment, climate change and related issues. Mathematics would help you cover the section on statistics. If you have an optional of statistics, that will help you cover the section on statistics. Then if you have an optional of public administration, then it would be now an advantage because there is one whole paper on ethics. So polity, governance and ethics could be covered by opting for public administration. Then you have economics. You can cover the section on economics. Then you have sociology. You can cover the subjects or the issues related to social changes or social problems. And finally you have law, which can help you cover the sections of polity. So I believe these 9 subjects, if you are opting for, will definitely help you towards preparation for general studies. So if you have already a background in these subjects, you will have added advantage towards your optional, because it will help you in preparing GS along with the optional. So this can be one of the criterias, I believe, for deciding an optional, and not that the subject is scoring or subject is popular. Don't go by that, but go either by the interest in the subject, the background that you have, and then finally you can cross check if that is a part of GS, then it's well and good. So you can check out the list of these optionals that will help you in your preparation for general studies. So these were some of the basic guidelines to help most of the candidates think around what optional to choose. Never get misguided by what coaching institutes are propagating. Try to have your own ideas before selecting the optional. Refer past papers, refer the syllabus, and try to see whether you can understand that subject and you are interested in that subject. Only then opt for a certain subject.